This episode of the Jesse T Show is brought to you by 46 and 2 Wealth Partners. This year, many people have lots of money questions. Finding the right information can be tough, and more importantly, finding someone that you like and have confidence in is even tougher. If you'd like to keep more of your money, and more importantly, if you'd like to stop trading time for money and live the life you deserve, contact 46 and 2 Wealth Partners today. Right now, Jesse T Show listeners will receive a free 15-minute phone call that will leave you with at least one idea on how to keep or make more money. Text promo code Jesse T Show to phone number 202-301-4503. Mark, great to see you, man.
Good to see you.
How's everything going in your world?
It's good.
Yeah?
You know, a little overcast today, but I will tell you what, life could be a lot worse these days, right?
True, considering everything that's going on in the world these days.
Yeah. You know, and I will tell you, I kind of embrace the part of, the glass is half full.
For sure.
More than half empty.
Yeah.
I'm one of those half full kind of guys. So as much as, and I was listening to the news on the way over here, as much as the news says things are bad, I think things are pretty good, all things considered.
I agree.
You know,
I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist, and I think that the news is very hard for a lot of people to digest, and it's very fear mongering. It's pushing agenda, and so I've gotten my news through different outlets over the years. I've stopped watching the news, stopped consuming the propaganda,
right,
and tried to free my mind a little bit. But I think we are, if we take a step back and we get away from the noise, and we look at our own lives, and we look at the things that are going on around us, things are pretty good.
Where really you live your life is in those moments. You know, there's a documentary on Netflix right now about social media, and I live in social media, so it's a very important spot for me to do research, if you will.
Social Dilemma, is that what it's called?
The Social Dilemma.
Social Dilemma.
Exactly. And it's a little startling and it's funny. A lot of my friends said, have you read it? Have you seen it? Have you seen it? Yeah, I've seen it. And there is no surprise from my perspective of what they shared. It essentially boils down to this. We share enough data online, either through Google or YouTube. Yes, folks, YouTube is social media. Through YouTube, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, we share enough information that they have they know more about us than we want to admit. The more of those platforms you use, the more information you're giving, because you're the product, right?
100%. And the data is the rich, the commerce between the companies that are willing to pay for you, the product, and your attention. And for them to know where you're at based on location, to what habits you have, and tracking and all these different things. They know so much about you that they're changing behaviors for people. They
absolutely are. Now, this is a lot of people that are on the capitalistic side of the world will say, hey, this is capitalism. You don't pay to use Facebook. You are the product. Well, you didn't pay to watch TV before. We were the product. The difference is they get real-time data. And they understand where you are, right? And as you're paging through, that algorithm is figuring out what to feed. All right, what's the next thing we want to put in Jesse T's feed? Well, he seems to really like baseball. Baseball field right there. So they'll drop in a baseball, because why do they want you looking at baseball? Because they want you on it longer.
Keep your attention.
Right, longer you're on it, the more they can try to sell to you. What we need to do as humans is realize we got to put those devices down. Right. You told me right before we started, you do your social media stuff on Mondays. You do client appointments Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and then you do office work on Fridays. I probably oversimplified that.
That's perfect.
Right? Why do you do that? It's because you're budgeting your time. We ought to budget our time on our devices also.
I agree.
I do come from a point of, I think LinkedIn is unbelievable. It is, I heard somebody had invented something. I think this is really funny. There's a guy that invented a thing you put on the back of your phone, and I can tap your phone and you get my business card electronically.
That's right.
That's what LinkedIn is. You and I should just connect on LinkedIn. It's already there, and it's a more robust option, as a matter of fact.
For sure.
I can pull up my QR code. You can scan it with your phone app. Forget the fact that you have LinkedIn on your phone or not. It will take you to my contact info. So it's really there. we should leverage that because it is so powerful. It makes it easier to do business. In fact, you and I met each other on LinkedIn.
100% we did. And I think the idea of technology, in my mind, it's like we have fire from the gods. What we choose to do with it will be our success or our demise. And so if we decide to use it for good, right? There's good that can come from it. And then if, like anything else, any technology, any weapon, any information, if you use it for wrong, bad things are going to happen.
Bad news.
And some of the things that caught my eye that were interesting is they companies like Instagram and Facebook and all these different platforms out there, Reddit, all these different companies, they hire some of the foremost thought leaders in the world when it comes to like psychology and behavioral science. And little things were caught my, because I took notes. I was watching The Social Dilemma. I didn't get all the way through it because my attention span is like a goldfish now because of social media. It's true. And it's like,
actually, technically, a goldfish has more attention span than we do.
That's why I hear it's like by like 2 seconds. That's incredible.
Right.
When you're talking 7 seconds, 2 seconds is a long time. So there's this little ellipses that pops up when you're texting someone. And so it keeps you attuned because you're like, when you send a text to someone, these little 3 dots that are kind of like glowing, it's like you're waiting for their response. So that's another way they keep your attention because you're like, it's a dopamine hit. And so there's a lot of chemistry and biology that goes behind this. And it's, again, there's some nefarious stuff, but I like to think that if you're a free-thinking person and you have good values and good morals and good virtues, and you are capitalistic, that's great, that's fine. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, you can use the powers for good. You just have to be careful because it could go the other way.
I think that that's a great segue into, should the government try to regulate social media? Should they regulate the way these algorithms work? And I think what's interesting about that argument is you have to step back and say, can they regulate themselves? Will they regulate themselves?
That's the question.
Facebook has a rebuttal. Have you seen the rebuttal they posted?
No.
All right, I'll send that to you. Maybe we put that in the show notes.
We will.
There's a PDF where Facebook said, these are the things that we have done that they don't mention in the show. And one of them is they have created a way to try to get you off the platform more often.
For sure.
I do think Facebook started in a good spot.
Yep.
Can those philosophies help guide them into the future? I think the push and pull from stockholders is a problem for them.
Yeah.
They are beholden to those stockholders. How do you say, I'm going to make less money and you're going to be happy for it? That's a hard thing to do.
Right.
Heck, you know this better than anyone, right?
It's hard.
So I do worry that long term that becomes too big of a challenge.
Yep.
And I do think that eventually there may need to be some regulation by the government. But I will tell you this, here's the other thing, is I don't trust the government to make those calls correctly.
I agree, because think about all these politicians through the years and these people that are career, lifelong politicians, the things they have to do to stay in that game. And you hope that there's good people sprinkled in there, but by default, to play that game, you have to operate in a space that may not be the most digestible for people.
Right.
With great power, with people that have ultimate power, it corrupts ultimately a lot of times, and people that want to chase money. And then I was talking about this with a good buddy of mine yesterday, where once you get to a certain place, it's like the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And all these people probably were virtuous, and maybe some still are, and they were good people, but they end up hanging out with people that have power and clout, and then eventually become Jeffrey Epstein, or you head over to the island. You know what I mean? Like that's the worst case scenario.
Right.
But this is happening with people that are still in power today. So it's like the question becomes, do we want people like that to have that power, and what does that mean for us? And I think personal sovereignty, we can get into this for days. For me, I'm a free man, I'm a free thinker. And I believe in everybody should be able to have their happiness, the pursuit of happiness. And then at the end of the day, government, they really do work for us, even though they've flipped it. And they've made it that we need them. In the Constitution, they need us. Right. So I think there's this ever vigilance that we have to have as business owners, as family members, as leaders in the community that say, this is what we want, and this is how we operate. And we really have to just kind of carry that flag for ourselves. You know what I mean?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
The number one challenge is that if I'm a politician, I need your vote, and I got to figure out a way that I keep your vote. And sometimes keeping your vote may not be the best option.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes I need to make the right call that is the best thing for our culture, even though it could upset some people.
It's not popular, and you're not pandering.
I think that for that reason alone, that Congress ought to have term limits.
I agree.
So I think like the presidency is 2 terms. I think that senators should be 2 terms, right? Because that's a long time. 12 years is a long time.
Yeah.
So, the older I get, I think, gosh, 12 years, that's a major percentage of my life, right? So I do think that term limits are good because it keeps, at least part of Congress in that case would be, okay, I'm not going to, I'm unreelectable. I can't run again. And so hopefully they would phase into, let's make the right call.
Yeah.
But I do think that social media is creating, because of the way the algorithm works, it without a doubt polarizes us because we end up in echo chambers. And I think that that's bad. Yeah. I spend every morning listening to podcasts. And
which ones when we talk about those?
Okay, so if I were to look at my feed, I hit the gamut, right? And the reason I do is I hit all sides. I really want to hear, and I got to get to my setup on my. So, by the way, the best podcast app ever, Overcast.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
I haven't.
Overcast is the best app because it is not beholden to someone.
Okay.
You pay a fee to them. That's it. And it has nice little settings. For example, I can tell a certain podcast to start 30 seconds in.
Okay.
Because they always have the garbage in the beginning.
The
right?
ads.
The ads, right. The ads, or here's the intro. And they're typically 30 seconds, right?
Right, so about that, yeah.
All the podcasts for me start about 30 seconds in.
Smart.
And then I can, in the back end, I can clip the backside. So anyway, love Overcast.
Beautiful. You have control of what you consume.
Absolutely. What you do, right, and you create lists and such. So here's my list in the mornings. I listen to Rush Limbaugh.
Okay.
He drops a piece. Then I listen to NPR. So I have NPR News. Then I get into Fox News after that. And these are their little news clips.
Okay.
Then I listen to Washington Post's The Daily 202. Now you can see what's happening, right? I'm pinging back and forth.
Trying to get both sides.
I want to hear both sides.
Yeah.
The AJC has a news podcast
for local stuff.
Local,
news.
right?
Yeah.
And they drop that Monday through Friday. And then Up First, which is another NPR. Now the stuff that drops in there that's a little wonky is 60 Minutes.
Yep.
I always get 60 Minutes will take their show they drop on Sundays, convert the whole thing to a podcast.
Smart.
It's so much easier to listen to it, and if you decide, I need to watch that, you can pop in because I have it all recorded.
You're repurposing content. This is in your world where you understand that for me, as a podcaster, one podcast can mean forever content in so many ways.
Right.
I can have clips, I can have sound bites, I can do marketing stuff with it, I can do the full episode, I can do trailers. I mean, literally one episode could be so much.
Right.
And repurposing that content where they're shooting an episode on 60 Minutes and then putting it on a podcast and probably doing clips and trailers and it's great. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it is. It's a no-brainer. So the other ones that I recommend that I add in there that I didn't mention, ABC News Update is really good. Yep. I have a hard time finding a bias in theirs. I have a real hard time finding any bias.
They just try to tell it how it is, so to speak.
Yeah, it just, the language that the podcasts news outlets use is telling.
Yes.
Right. So if I say, everybody that's right, everybody I mentioned in my podcast, if they're right wing, and I say they're a right wing radical, and that's how I describe them every time, that's a bias.
Yep.
Without a doubt. If I am looking at if I'm describing super left wing or hyper partisan left wing, those adjectives tell you what side they're coming down, unless they say that about both sides, and they don't typically do that.
Right. So you can get a feel for where people are coming from.
That's right.
Yeah.
Axios does a decent job. They're certainly left leaning. There was no one here. So I think this is really interesting. PragerU puts out 5-minute videos and they drop them as a podcast. They're definitely very conservative. Oftentimes they're flagged as liars, right? That they make stuff up. I still think that they're very interesting to listening to because they create a very coherent message. And I think some of their stuff that they bring up I think is very worthwhile. And the last one, and this is the one I should have started off with this one. Trey Gowdy was a congressman from South Carolina. He's personally term limited himself. He says, I'm going to serve two terms. I'm out. So he has a podcast, and his is, I think, should be on everybody's list. I don't care if you're conservative. I don't care if you're liberal. Because of the way he presents information is absolutely brilliant. He says, if you are liberal-minded or conservative-minded, this is how you should formulate your argument. I don't care what side you're on.
Yep.
Formulate your argument this way, and make sure you study this, and make sure you consider this. He's more interested in creating a government that works versus one that fights.
Yes, I agree. And the thing about podcasts and podcasters and podcasting is you really have the ability to come from a place of authenticity and truth. And especially if you're not almost like held by the shareholders, so to speak. If you don't have an interest from someone else to say something a certain type of way where I can come on and say what I want, how I want. And guys like Joe Rogan are very much the same way. I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan because he's like Trey Gowdy, where he wants to present information as it is, and he'll be the first to tell you, he's like, if he's, because he's an expert in comedy and UFC commentating and martial arts and plant medicine work and all these things, but he'll be the first to tell you, he's like, I'm an idiot when it comes to this, and this is why we have this expert here, and they're going to give you the information that's just kind of, it is what it is.
Right.
And he doesn't get political with how he feels, and he's really a gem to the human race because he finds people that want to tell people kind of how things work and what's going on in the world. And he comes from a lens of, he's up until the Spotify deal, he's kind of catching some shit from that right now, but he's been very, very big on just free thinking and just leaving the world a better place. And if you can find those people that you resonate with, it doesn't have to be Rogan. For me, it is, but for other people, if it's Trey Gowdy, whoever it is, you have to consume content that's as unbiased as possible so that echo chamber doesn't happen. And so that stereotyping of liberal, conservative, and if you could just operate in happiness and in truth, I mean, that's the game.
I call that critical thinking.
Yeah.
Be a critical thinker. Yeah. Don't assume everything you hear is truthful.
Question authority. That's what I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every single day, are they telling me the truth? Why are they telling me this? What's their motivation?
What's the agenda?
And also know that if you're on YouTube and you see one conspiracy theory and you watch the entire episode, it's going to serve you a whole series of conspiracy theories that support that one, right?
That's right.
And all of a sudden you walk out and you say, holy mackerel, the earth is flat.
Yeah, yeah. Which we have evidence that we know of that's not true. So talk a little bit about, because I could go down that path because I am into stuff like that, from like learning about UFOs. Well, let me ask you this. Did you see what the Pentagon released a couple months ago?
No.
This is legitimate from the Pentagon. In the strangest year that I've experienced in my life. 38 years old, got hopefully a lot of life to live, but I've seen a lot of life too in those 38 years. This is the weirdest year I've ever seen.
Yeah, without a doubt.
They've released that based on General or Captain David Faber, who's a U.S. Navy pilot.
Yep.
He was tracking an unidentified flying object. Didn't mean you alien, but it was unidentified flying object. Mm-hmm. And the way that this propulsion system worked on this thing, there was nothing visible. You couldn't see an engine. You couldn't see any kind of propulsion. And it went from 60,000 feet to sea level 1 foot or below, like in a split second, which nothing we know to man can do that. Then the Pentagon comes out, and this is they backdate to like 2004, 2013, some of these sightings. They say, this is what they say in the article, and I'll send it to you. We have off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. The Pentagon came out and said this in a recent article in the last couple months. And so it's like,
they said they have
off-world vehicles not made, materials that are made in this vehicle are not found on this Earth. Mm-hmm. So they're alluding to the fact that there is some sort of thing that's out there. Yeah,
sure.
So that question then becomes, what else? Again, these people in power, what else don't they share with us? And a lot of times, probably for the betterment of society, I would hope is a way to protect people. You don't want to freak people out. People, and then that goes into a whole bunch of things of people's beliefs and what's going on. But I'll send you the article; it's really interesting.
So I've seen this, right? And there was an episode. Actually, there was a series on. Gosh, I want to say the History Channel.
Yeah.
Don't quote me.
Yep.
But there was someone dropped the whole series, and the problem was they just drug it out too long, and I couldn't watch it. It was like, okay, come on, get to the meat of the matter, because I have less attention than a goldfish.
Right.
But
it's good self-awareness.
But I did read about this, and I do think that I just think that we're naive as a species to believe that with a bazillion planets out there, we can't even see the end of the entire universe, right? That we're the only species around. Now, I just don't I just can't
Can't wrap my head around that either.
I don't think that makes any sense. Logically, it just makes no sense.
Right.
The chances are that there is another planet that's just far enough from their sun that has water that can sustain life. It's
if they even need to operate like that. Maybe their whole chemistry and DNA, like they don't need water. Maybe there's a different kind of thing that just it's something completely separate.
Yeah, that's very good point.
Maybe it's consciousness. Who knows what it is?
Yeah, it's sort of.
But I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's assuming that our brain is more knowledgeable than there are a lot of things that we can't
We're still
comprehend.
monkeys.
Right. Oh, yeah. Sort of like describe a black hole.
Right.
Yeah. We can't see into it.
Yep.
We can't see out of it.
And supposedly when you go in, you can't come back out.
I did hear a podcast recently where somebody described this is what it'll be like falling into a black hole. And the funny thing is as well, once one part of your body starts to fall in, it's kind of gone.
Yeah. I hear from what I've heard, different theories. It's like all your cells like are pulled apart and you're gone. Like it's just you're gone.
Yeah, you're vaporized is not really the right word because there's no vapor.
Right. So that being said, so are you into outside of the news and the learning type podcast? Do you do any kind of like fantasy or learning in terms of the stuff that we're talking about, like other podcasters that you follow that have interesting stuff that they talk about?
Yeah, first of all, the thing about podcasts is that it's daunting.
Yeah. So much. There's so many.
There's
millions.
So much content, without a doubt. What I would recommend is looking at some blogs of people that are great, and I would say I should, and I've talked about this a lot.
Surely.
I should probably start a blog on podcasts because I enjoy them so much. When you get down to some of the best shows out there, some of the ones that I think are really interesting are Malcolm Gladwell series.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep.
Well done. He makes you think about, he calls it revisionist history. So he'll challenge your thought about something that you already assume. But one of my favorites is Radiolab. Now, the struggle that I have is all of these sometimes have an agenda.
For sure.
Radiolab can come out sometimes with an agenda. They do so assuming everybody's on the same page with them, but they still will bring up such great content. It's absolutely brilliant. Hidden Brain. Have you heard?
I haven't heard Hidden Brain.
Oh, you haven't. Okay. Well, this is one you should add.
Okay.
Hidden Brain is all about psychology.
Oh, beautiful.
And so there is
big into that space.
there is no point they're trying to make other than saying this is how the human brain thinks.
Do they use Jungian psychology, or do they have like a certain forefather, so to speak, of psychology? Do you know?
They're not focused on that.
Okay.
The host of that he's of Indian descent, so I can't pronounce his name.
Okay.
It begins with an S.
Yep.
And he doesn't appear to focus on
any one particular.
But he is, and there's some people that may go, "Oh no, he's following this trend."
Yeah.
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
I definitely can't. Then, so I listen to that one constantly. Did I mention Cautionary Tales?
No.
Cautionary Tales is really interesting also because they'll go into a story and really dig deep. And what I like about podcasts is they'll bring up topics that are so unique that you never thought about it.
Right.
And I like that. They're making me think about things that I haven't thought about before.
It opens your mind and it gives you critical thinking skills. We're going back to what you were talking about, where if you have enough information, you can start to really think for yourself and not have to be force-fed information from powers that be and hoping that it's good for you.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
You like history?
I do.
Have you heard of Hardcore History?
I have.
So I have renovated my house before. I have painted whole rooms. This guy's podcasts are hours long.
Yeah.
And so I'll go through one episode, and I finished the whole room. So
that's like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan goes on 3-hour tears all the time.
Yeah. It is really, really amazing. So, and then beyond that, there's so many other things that I think. Oh, Conan O'Brien has one of the funniest interview podcasts. Period.
I believe it.
Now his late night show, his late night TV it's okay.
Yeah, it's scripted. He has to follow kind of a little bit of a thing, but he can get a little more free when he does his own thing.
they're dropping F-bombs.
Of course, that's how comedians are.
It's funny. It's not because they're dropping F-bombs that it's funny,
right.
But
they're freer. Yeah.
When he interviews someone, they can get into topics that you just can't put on TV.
It's more interesting. And the whole late night thing is very stale. And it's like the comedians nowadays, because I'm big into like the comedians at the Comedy Store in LA, and like they all run together. They're all doing their own podcast. It used to be that you had to come up like through a David Letterman or Johnny Carson or Jay Leno as an up and coming comedian to get a TV show. Like there was like a system, like a Ray Romano, like he did a show. Like now they just go to up until recently because of Corona, but they would go to the Comedy Store, they'd be part of this thing, and they go out and start their own podcast, and they get their own deals, and they're free, and it's created this beautiful amalgamation of just free thinking comedians. It's amazing.
It is
and
really
it's
cool.
so that all this to say, and we're kind of hitting this narrative of think for yourself and learn for yourself and be free through your own medium. So going back to your medium and what you do, talk a little bit about your field and your expertise in social media, kind of how that trajectory was for you, like the need that you saw, or maybe the perfect storm that pushed you into what you're doing.
Yeah. And because I have my own podcast, I'm not going to give you a biography, right?
Sure.
Because honestly, it's boring.
Sure.
What's interesting about my story is I spent 25 years in the hotel business. I went to a media firm that focused on working with hoteliers, and I learned there that I was a communicator.
Yep.
And I've always been that. It's just I was in corporate environments that suppressed that talent.
Yeah.
And corporate America, and I love my hotel experience. This is not dinging on them. It was me discovering in myself that I should have stepped up earlier. However, I'm 50. I got up. I decided, okay, I can do this. This is something important. So I decided I'm going to start communicating about something that is applicable to today's world.
Nice.
And I'm a professional user. That comes out of that's not out of the social dilemma, but they say that, right?
Yep.
But I am a professional user of social media and of technology. And because of that, I was like, okay, this is a space that I can get into because I can do this and I can do it well. And so I entered into that space 5+ years ago now, and with the mission of helping individuals get online and stay online.
Beautiful.
So we would help executives, take a COO of an organization, we'd help them get online, stay online while they do their job.
Yeah.
Had their day job, they can do that. And we have now phased into all facets of social media. So we do call ourselves a full-service social media agency. We can run the social media for an organization, soup to nuts. Plus, we can help the executives in that organization get online and stay online.
Yep.
We also do consulting. What we've done is we said, okay, we're narrow here. Let's get really good at this. We did. And then we said, okay, let's expand our offerings because, quite frankly, because of revenue.
Yep.
Gives us more opportunity to create revenue streams. Now that I'm in this space, it's important, more and more important to help people understand how do you leverage yourself in this space without losing your head. So now we run webinars, we'll bring people in and we spend an hour, we'll go over 5 things they need to do on their LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
And then a secondary webinar later where we'll show them how to communicate and how to be active on their social. Because the struggle that most people have is they just don't get it.
They don't get it, and they don't make the time to get it. They just randomly throw something out into the ether. They see that it doesn't. They may have a preconceived notion of like what's going to happen. Nothing happens, and so they're like, it's bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
It
takes skill and it takes time.
It does.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily have either one of those.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of people just
That's why you exist.
They don't have that. Exactly. They don't have the skill. They don't have the time. You can find someone to do it for not a lot of money and get active online. So I've got a number of clients that call us and they just say, they're just blown away by how great the service is. And the number one thing they say is, I walk up and I see Jesse Toot. He says, man, you're killing LinkedIn. I say, well, I haven't logged on LinkedIn in 3 months.
Yep.
And the thing that's important is their online branding supports their offline brand.
100%. Has to be complementative.
And let's be honest, you don't have to be online to get that supported brand.
Right.
So stay engaged with whomever is managing your social media, but let them do it for you. And let them do it while you continue to do all the things that are great beyond, outside of the internet. What's important though is you have to have a presence.
Yep. You are a brand, like, essentially these days, and it's weird to say, but, like, everybody has a brand at some level, and it goes back to the old salesman in me. Like, everybody has to do sales at some level,
right?
Even sharing and convincing ideas that you want people to take action, or to, in my world, not take action, which is super important. Someone makes a bad investment decision. If they didn't listen to me, I'm like, well, that's not good. So I have to educate them and coach them and walk them through why they can't do those things. You know what I mean? That's a sale. Even though I'm actually transacting anything, I'm transacting an idea, which is super important. So for you to make that leap from the hotel industry after such a long time and being so invested, were you just like, were you fed up? Was there a muse? Like, what caused the mental switch for you to go from there to social media? And, like, how did you actually, like, the process of doing that?
That's a good question. So my last hotel was the largest hotel in the state of Georgia. I'm not leaving the state. And when I'm there and I'm always thinking, what's the next step?
Yep.
What's next? I knew that I was not going to go to another hotel.
Okay.
Made no sense, right? I wasn't going to go backwards, because that's what would happen next.
You had arrived, essentially. Like, you made it to the big show, the big game in town.
Yeah, that's it, right? And from a personal compensation space to a number of things, that was it, right? Unless I decided I wanted another position in that hotel and ready to move to another city, not. Once I got to that spot, I said, okay, what is next? And I had to look for that what is next. And the step into an organization like I was, so I went into a media firm that produced shows, digital marketing, and print marketing material. But they still worked with the hotel business. So I didn't really leave the hotel business.
Okay.
I went to something that's connected to it.
Sure.
Gave me an opportunity to see an entrepreneur at work. I watched the owner of that company develop that company, make it into something, and found out that let's be honest, when you work for a company, I worked for Marriott. When you work for Marriott and you look at I think the largest hotel company in the world, you look at how complex that org is, you can talk yourself out of being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Because you think, I can't do all this.
Because you're looking at almost an end result product versus the steps it took to get there.
Right.
And the growth that happens with you and the things you learn and the things you get better. Yeah.
I just thought, okay, I can't do this. Then I went to a small org, saw this guy run his company, make money at it, and realized, I can do this. That's why I was able to make the leap.
You were inspired, and you had almost a mentor in a sense.
Yeah.
Whether they were direct mentor or not, you learned from that person.
When you see someone succeed at something, and honestly, he's a smart guy, but I ran into a gazillion people like that in the hotel business, right? And they never had the courage to start their own company because they saw the same thing I did. Too much. I can't do all this. So started the company 5 years ago, and it's been successful. We're doing very well this year.
What was the first piece of the transition like for you? Because a lot of people that listen to this and watch the show are either entrepreneurs, they're about to leave corporate, kind of like what you did to become an entrepreneur. And so that segue is super important. It's almost, the way I define it a lot of times is entrepreneurs will jump out of an airplane and they'll figure out without a parachute, and they'll figure out how to put together the parachute before they land.
Right.
So there's that, yes, you want to be practical, you want to be in a position of power with, if you have funding, that's great, and if you have systems, that's great, but a lot of times you have to have blind faith in yourself and your systems and your network and you have to kind of have a little bit of fearlessness, sometimes a lot of fearlessness, and say, I can do this. So what was that mindset shift for you? Were you already there? Were you scared? Were you nervous? And what did you do to kind of work through that to get to 5 years later?
So number one is I was there.
Yeah.
I had studied for a year. I had researched for a year about the company, and I was not ready to make the decision. The owner of the company came to me and said, okay, Mark, we're going to take you from here and we're going to have you do this job. And I didn't want to do that job.
Gotcha.
And so I said, I'm not interested in the move. And he said, well, then I don't have anything for you. And I said, great, let's come up with an exit package. So he was good to me.
That's good.
Came out with a great exit package. It gave me the opportunity to kind of float for 4 months before I had to make money, so to speak. And so I did that. The other thing that took a little longer is taking that confidence that you talked about and knowing that there's value in my service. There's value in me.
For sure.
So the number one thing that has to happen is, in fact, this just happened last week. A friend of mine sent me a note and said, hey, will you check out this LinkedIn profile? And I had to reply back. That's how I paid my bills.
Yeah.
Would you go to a restaurant that right. And you happen to know the owner, right? And you walk in the restaurant where you're going to say, hey, you should feed me a free meal because I need to eat.
I'm hungry.
I do eat, right?
Yeah.
I need to, because that was kind of the idea that I got. Hey, this, I really need help here. We're friends. Yeah, we are friends, but this is how I pay my bills.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something. 4 years ago, I would have just looked at the profile.
For sure.
And said, do this, do this, do this, do this.
But you've learned the value of time and the art of saying no.
Right.
Yeah.
So important to get to the point to say, what I do is valuable. And now I get up every day and I say, what I do is valuable.
Beautiful.
What I do is valuable.
Like a mantra, in a sense.
I've got to say it because I know it is valuable.
Yep.
And it's hard. Well, here's my struggle. Early on, this was my struggle. It was easy for me. I just stepped in. I can do this. This is a natural space for me. Over the time that I've run the company, I've learned time and time again that I'll even say this, most people can't do what I'm doing. Most people cannot take their LinkedIn profile and make it great.
Yep.
There is a certain number, like you're very good at it, right? So you're not my target audience. But the people who see your profile say, gosh, Jess, how do you do that? How do you find time? I can't do that. You say, you know what? It's not for everybody. I got this buddy of mine that you should call.
Yeah.
I do offer those people value because they need to do what you're doing. They just don't have the time or the know-how sometimes.
Time, interest, or knowledge. That's exactly where I operate.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing that I have learned. Our best clients are on Facebook.
Yep.
They're busy on Facebook. They're sharing content on Facebook.
Yep.
They just don't have time to get LinkedIn.
Because there's another thing in their mind to do, like from Instagram to YouTube to LinkedIn to Facebook to Twitter to this.
Right.
You have to find a way to systematize it or outsource.
Right.
And a lot of times, and I have this conversation all the time, and the reason why experts exist, like let's take a plumber, for instance. You think you could do it yourself and you want to go do something, you fix a fixture, you put in some new installation or whatever it is, and you go in and you maybe take a YouTube video, YouTube University, and you think you could do it, and maybe you go screw something up or it's not as good as it could have been, and you try to save money, but eventually you're losing time and money. The reason why you hire someone because they could go in there maybe in a half an hour and do it 45 minutes isn't because of that half hour, 45 minutes, it's because of the 10,000 hours they took to become an expert, to do it right. To do it well, so there's no future problems. And so that's why people like you and I exist as consultants, is because, people can go out and, read a book, or they can get, economics classes and financial planning classes, but then you have to put in the work. You have to put in the experience of this doesn't work, or this does work, and these are the ways that these things happen. And so, yes, you could do it yourself, but do it yourself comes with a price. And a lot of times you end up going back and hiring that person anyway.
That's right.
So shortcut the system, find an expert, and stay in your lane of what you're great at.
Right.
Yeah.
And continue and turn that piece into an ROI.
Yeah.
Make money on it. I had someone who called me right after the coronavirus hit. So we're really talking about April-ish, and he asked he signed up for a consulting session, and I helped him on his LinkedIn profile, and he called me about 3 months later, and he said, "You helped me get a job faster."
Yep.
And he said, he said, I've got friends still looking for jobs, but I got a job faster than they did. So the ROI is, you got me a job 3-4 months faster than I would have otherwise. And the ROI on that is fantastic.
Yeah, and the type of job maybe. Maybe he got a better job because of it versus what he wasn't getting a job.
Absolutely.
But maybe if he got his own job, maybe it wasn't as meaningful, or the quality of life that came from it, or the revenue, it could have been way different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, all of that it comes back to the thing that is important as an entrepreneur is valuing yourself enough to charge for your services.
Yes.
In the fashion that people should pay for.
That was the struggle that I had to make the leap from, because I went from corporate. I've been an entrepreneur on and off through my life through different iterations, but I was in corporate for a while, I was in the military for a while, and then getting back to being an entrepreneur. To make that leap from corporate to now charging a fee for my advice and a fee for my time and my services, that was a leap. And then the leap also consisted of growth where, this was the price that I felt that I should charge for the year, because there's a few different ways that I charge. There's ongoing advice price, and then there's percentage of portfolio price kind of deal, to make it simple. And the price for the ongoing advice for the year, for financial planning advice, was X. And if I met with someone and I wasn't confident in, that pricing, I might work out a deal with them.
Right.
So to speak.
Right.
So instead of asking for X, I
You'd
would
even go in thinking, I got to make a deal.
Yeah. And
Right.
so now I've found, and this is something I've always known through sales that I've done before, is you have to have confidence in yourself, confidence in the product, and you tell people the price.
Yeah.
And for me, it's done a beautiful thing. It's brought in the type of clients that I want to work with in my business versus, no offense, but like the nickel and dimers, like the people that are going to ask you for the free social media review, the people that are going to go to the restaurant to ask for the free meal, those things are okay if they need those things. But for me, I want to work with a certain type of person.
Right.
And if I say this is the price and this is the value, here's the thing about price. People will do business with who they like, know, and trust. And if you've positioned the value to where they get it, the price, they'll make it work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will make it work. And they'll see the value.
100%.
And as long as they see the value, they're going to stay on. It is real to me that all this is extremely interesting because there's a point where there's a point where you start to say, I don't want to do business with these people. They are not my ideal customer,
Yep.
and I don't have to do business with them. And that is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
When you fire your first customer,
Yes.
is liberating.
It's so freeing.
Yeah.
And so I believe in the value of mentors, like you talked about earlier. I've always believed in having wise counsel, and I've become wise counsel because of it. You have to have people that are smarter than you, that have more
absolutely.
experience than you, that you could share and trade notes with, always in different aspects of life. And my mentor, Patrick Tucker, he's always talking about a very interesting term, PETA, which is what I learned in the military, but he brought it back around in his planning business because he's an investment advisor as well. He's like, I don't want a pain in the ass in my business. I don't want someone that's always going to give me a hard time, someone's always going to question what I'm doing, someone that just like, I want my quality of life, I want my business to be able to dictate the life I want to live and not vice versa.
Right.
Not let the business dictate like, I'm not happy
That's so
today.
smart.
And so if you can remove PETAs on the front end, and that's for me, I date my clients. It sounds silly, but I date my clients because I want to know that I like them, they like me at some level, there's a common trust and a belief, and that there's going to be an expectation of our working agreement, and this is how it's going to work.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So from the introduction, if I don't know them already, through the onboarding process, I'm vetting them out. Like back in the day when I was first starting my business, it was spaghetti against the wall. It was like, let's get as many deals as we can. I was in a different world working on commission, so it was like, keep what you kill.
Absolutely. And
it
you know what? It's
way
good,
different.
right?
Yeah.
But it's a good way to start.
Yeah. And then
you
you
learn a lot.
season, you grow through, and then eventually you're like, you know what? I don't need that client because I can see down the road, and that could come back to bite me in the ass.
So I had a client that was really difficult, and my wife would know when I talked to that client.
You come home just different.
So, and at the time I was working out of my basement office, and I have two offices. So here's something interesting. I office with a group called the Code Conspirators.
Yeah.
So they are a digital marketing firm.
I like the sound of it.
Great, isn't that great branding?
Yeah.
Code Conspirators, great people. So I met them. We had a couple of coffees together, and I said, how do I make sure you don't forget about me? Because they don't do social.
Yeah.
So I am their social arm.
Beautiful.
And they're constantly bringing in clients. So this was good. So now I rent an office from them.
Very nice.
But I used to come up from the basement office, and my wife was at home, and I've got 3 kids, and I'd come into the kitchen, and my wife would say, you spoke to XYZ client today just now, didn't you? I said, yep. She said, I can always tell.
Your demeanor's changed. Your attitude's changed.
I was miserable. So that was that. If that ever happens to you, okay, it's time to go ahead and sever that relationship.
And the
it's
way
not good for them or for you.
No, and the way to do that too, it doesn't have to be dramatic, knock down, drag out. It could just be a straight up conversation. Hey, listen, I appreciate you, and depending how you speak, like I would talk on a human level and just say, hey, listen, it's just I would love to try to find you a better fit. I don't think I'm that good fit for you, and have a solution ready. Have 2 or 3 solutions ready.
That's a really smart thing. I did not do that. We have a 90-day out clause in our contract.
Yep.
And it's good for them or us.
Yep.
And I just said, hey, I'm going to exercise this because I'm not the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And I did say that. I'm not the right fit.
That's even a step above what I'm saying because now it's contractual. So now there doesn't have to be any legal because it's just in what they signed. And so for me, I have a 30-day. It's more on there. And if they find a reason why they don't want to work with me, they just give me a 30-day heads up and I'll let them go. No
Cool.
big deal.
That's very smart.
But coming to the table, back in the day, I was a State Farm agent. If I had other options, like another State Farm agent that may be a better fit, or maybe another insurance agent altogether, I'd say, hey, listen, this person probably fits you because of X, Y, Z. And essentially, like we go back to it, sell them on that idea, but in an authentic way. Maybe they're closer logistically. Maybe they're a better fit because of personality, whatever it is. But try to leave people better than you found them is the whole idea.
That is a smart thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a brilliant way to go. So businesses, someone said this to me recently, and I loved it. We were talking about the success of ePresence, and they said, you know, Mark, I have a feeling that even if you weren't successful, you still be happy doing what you're doing.
That's it.
And that was an aha moment that I never thought about, that a lot of entrepreneurs would probably admit to, especially when they make it past that 5-year mark.
Yep.
Do you know what? I'll continue to do what I'm doing because I am covering the basics of my bills,
Yep.
but I'm still going to do this because, and they'll list off those things that are most important to me. And I'm going to tell you, here's why, because this company, it is mine. It is successful. It's honest. It cares about its people that are involved in our organization. I care about them immensely. And I'm also able to represent the brand without having to worry about making a decision.
Yep.
Oh, should I or shouldn't I do that? I make that decision. And that freedom.
That's the word the whole time I'm hearing is like a ticker in front of me saying freedom, 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 freedom.
It's the ability, and you know what? I'm right 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Right? I'm wrong 10% of the time, and I like being wrong.
You got to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more often I'm wrong, the more often I have an
Fail
opportunity
forward.
to learn.
Yep, I agree.
You bet.
So yeah, quality of life is a big thing for me. I've learned, because for me, the value of time is the most important thing. I've had an interesting life story where I've seen some crazy stuff, and I've literally held death in my hands twice to know that life is a gift. It's precious.
Yeah.
And I want to have a certain quality of life with the gift I've been given of time that I'm here. Right.
You bet.
And so, that's how I run my business. That's how I interact in relationships. That's how I treat my body and my mind and my spirit. It's all about, and I'm not perfect at it. You know what I mean? Like, I might be into health and wellness, but I'll throw down a pack of cookies one day. Like, it just, you enjoy those little things, but the whole premise is the freedom and the quality of life that you want to create for those around you and yourself. That's what the business should be doing. The business should be a tool to get you to live the life that you want to live, and vice versa. Not being a slave to your business, not being trapped in the business. There's a really good book that I caught my eye a few years ago, and it's funny because I've learned that books find me. Like, if I'm seeking something, I'm forcing something, but a lot of times things just kind of come across my desk, so to speak, and it's like, I needed this at this moment.
Right.
And one of those books was E-Myth, and the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. It's 3 people that exist in your business. It's all one person. There's the entrepreneur, which is the big thinker, the ideation person, the creative. There's the...
Love that guy.
Yeah, I do too. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah. There's the manager, the ops person, the day-to-day, the systems, the managing, the processes, the necessary evils, so to speak, to keep it all together, the glue, I guess.
I love that guy too, but he stresses me out.
Right, exactly. and then there's the technician, the expert at what you do, the social media expert, the people expert, the marketing expert, the financial planning expert, the psychology, the people expert. Like those, that's the technician. And the problem is, a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you get stuck in one of those 3 things.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to actually, the whole goal is to remove yourself from the business. And yes, you can still be involved as much as you want, but like, if you can wake up today and live your life the way that you wanted to and have the client relationships you wanted or do the things that you wanted, but you didn't have to be there 24/7 and you knew this thing was going to survive, thrive, and grow, versus being stuck in the weeds and I hate my life, I hate my job. Being able to remove yourself from the business if you choose to, that's kind of the ultimate goal, is like where the business, you've built it, you've impacted it, you've grown it, and then eventually you can either sell it or keep it until you die, but it keeps you happy.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will tell you, I struggle with every single one of those categories.
We all do. Yeah.
Right? What I love about being an entrepreneur is it has made me better.
Yep.
It has challenged me in ways that I never thought before, because I sit down and now every day I break down and I write down everything I do per hour. And so I go back and look at the end of an hour. What did I do this hour? What did I achieve? What did I do that hour? Was it worthwhile?
Yep.
And I'm constantly changing what I'm doing for the next hour.
Yep.
So incrementally, I'm changing things every hour, every hour.
And leaning into the things that help you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's because the struggle that I've constantly have, is I'll go through a day and I can look back and say, gosh, I didn't get anything done.
Yeah.
Right. And so, the time block, and that's what you do too.
Yes.
You've blocked days. I time block to pay the bills on Friday morning.
Yep.
And that block is there, and I don't book anything else on top of that.
Can't.
And I have to sit down and put my head into that moment and say, I got to do this. Well, that was not me in corporate America. It absolutely wasn't.
No, because you're everything to everybody.
Yeah,
running around and...
honestly, what happens in corporate America oftentimes is you become so specialized that you're doing one thing again and again and again, and it becomes just boring.
Yeah.
And so what do? You sometimes inject a little drama in that, just because it's so boring.
It's a spice of life.
Right. Oh, I'm not going to do that project. Let's see if somebody gets upset, right?
Yep.
But now as an entrepreneur, I am constantly, every day, trying to make myself better. And I didn't always do that. And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur is, yeah, you know what? I'm making mistakes, but I'm making mistakes on purpose versus, oh, that screwed up. It's like,
You're
you know
beta
what?
testing.
Yeah, this may not work. Let's try this.
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't work. Okay, what did we learn? X, Y, Z. Let's make sure we don't make that mistake again.
That's how you get the experience. And that's the thing about being an entrepreneur is it's an ongoing training, and it serves you for life and for relationships and for business. Yeah. But I can tell you things that have been kind of impacting me a lot recently are, I follow like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and they're really big in my space of like investing and building businesses and things like this. And so Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett are some of the wisest business people to ever exist, and they read 6 to 8 hours a day, like a book, like not an audio book, not like a podcast, but
how the heck?
I don't know. I don't know if they get up super early, or if they break it up, but now they're in a position where they're obviously in their 80s and 90s where they can do that.
Yeah.
And they have people that are running their companies, and that's kind of the idea of the E-Myth is like have people run your companies that you trust and believe in, good people. But with Charlie Munger, and it goes to your point of like scheduling and protecting your time, we kind of have that narrative is he's like, I don't know how you could ever allow someone to have control of your time. And he's like, and for me, I learned this a while back where people are on my schedule, and it's done a beautiful thing. Like if I want to have an appointment with someone, even if it's a client, I flip it around and I say, hey, listen, I'm on your time, I'm on your schedule, here's my calendar. And that calendar is already pre-set up, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for clients, they're getting that calendar.
Right.
You know what I mean? So even though they're picking a time, it's still within my time to meet with them in that window.
You're controlling it. Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's a beautiful mind shift where I've been able to book through and this is probably the last couple of years, client appointments, podcast appointments, whatever it is, and it's like more appointments come across my desk now more than ever because I'm controlling the time. It's really weird.
And you're controlling them in an efficient way because you're using an online calendar program. Yep.
Yeah, super easy. It's free.
And Calendly, and I have the paid version of Calendly because I love it. I'm in love with that. I'm a miser
with money.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing.
The thing that I love about that is you say when you want those appointments to fall.
100%.
Right? And so I schedule all my podcasts by Calendly.
Yep.
And not only, here's what's so great about it, is once you schedule a time with me to join me on my podcast, that program sends you an email that says, great, now go here and answer my questions, because I'll do a script and I'll come up with the questions that they want us to go through. And we've converted our podcast, it's called How's Your E-Presence? It's the podcast focused on business and social media.
Beautiful.
And on How's Your E-Presence, we're now creating a library so that we can reach more people. So if you want to say, how do I do video on Canva?
Yep.
We have a guy come on, he answers those questions, and if you search that on YouTube,
so much value.
And that's why we realized instead of doing episodic things, we want to do libraries where it can always be an evergreen product.
Beautiful.
But the great thing about it is the control you have by having that link is, here's when I do podcasts.
Yeah.
And the time is Tuesdays or Thursdays for me in the afternoons. I do afternoons because that's when I start to fall asleep, right? It's like, I'm running out of gas. So if I start talking,
it livens you up.
I can work through that fine.
Yeah.
But if I do it in the morning, I'm losing that valuable time.
You don't want to do that.
So I try to make sure in the mornings that I'm doing quality work, doing those 2-3 hour blocks in the morning of trying to hit something hard.
Yeah, it's smart to be able to know kind of what works for you, have that self-awareness, knowing that this time of days works for me, this day works for me, it doesn't work, and then being able to schedule that, and then I love all that. And so the question I just had was, in terms of you and your entrepreneurial journey, where did you see, was there like someone in your family, was there a thought leader, was there a book that you read that kind of helped shape that entrepreneur within you? Was it innate? Did you always have something in you? Like how did you become an entrepreneur? Or was there a muse for that?
There's really interesting. That's a great question, and the reason is because I hadn't read something that drove me to it. I guess it was in my DNA. I just wanted to do this. I wanted to do something entrepreneurial when I was in the hospitality business. I felt the urge to do that.
Okay.
And the reason is it came from within because I felt like I had a lot more value to offer than I was being tapped for, right? And the number one reason I knew I should do this is when the general manager of the hotel I was at, I mentioned the Marquis, I was at the Marriott Marquis, the general manager came, she sat down in my office and she said, you know what I figured out? I figured out you're actually an introvert. I am not an introvert. And she said that, and I realized that in the environment that I was in, that I was not flourishing.
Yep.
And I hate to say that I had to have some sort of external comment that triggered that. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to do something else so that I can be more effectively be me, which corporate America can do that. And the reason is depending on the environment you end up in, you can get marginalized.
Get put into a box too.
Yeah, because this is your job. We don't want you stepping out of it. And depending on who your supervisors are,
yes, that's huge.
They may not want you out of that box.
Can make or break you.
Yeah, you step out and they smack you and say, no.
Yeah.
We got this. And
PTSD coming back. Corporate PTSD.
Well, and I was in the sales arena, and I 100% embrace this, that the best salespeople are not the best leaders.
This is true.
Right?
This is true.
Salespeople just naturally don't lend themselves to be good leaders. I think most organizations that have sales organizations should look at their people and see who in this group is a leader who can lead salespeople. They may not be producing 250% on goal, but they may be a great leader. And the reason is because they're not focused on exclusively kill.
Yes.
They're focused on people.
It's a different mindset.
How do I make you succeed is a different mindset than how do I get you to buy from me?
Bro, I was in outside sales, cold call, door-to-door commission when I first started my sales career, and it was the best. It was
great way to
Navy
learn.
sales training of sales.
Yeah.
And it's completely lent to my success to this day, 100%.
Sure.
And some of the people some of my best friends are become that because of that relationship many years ago. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, I was the sales guy that was crushing it and doing well. As soon as I got into a leadership position, I sucked. Because, and I don't want to attribute myself to this, but like think about Michael Jordan when he was the greatest. I think he's the greatest basketball player of all time. When he went from that to like ownership or any kind of leadership position, he was the worst because he expected everyone to be as good as he was, and expected him to adopt his either work ethic or his ability, and not everyone can do that.
Right.
So I took a lot of humble pie when I first became a leader, and I had to really do a lot of ego work and had to do a lot of like self-awareness and gratitude type stuff, and like just figure out how to honestly be a better person and operate in that space. And thankfully I was able to work through that and become a leader through the years and do different things. But you hit the nail on the head. Most salespeople don't end up becoming the best leaders. It's that person that's not doing 250% to goal. It's that person that's probably, they're showing that they could be successful, probably doing 100% to goal. They're hitting their quota, but they're consistent. They're what we used to call steady Eddie. Their emotions are consistent. Their leadership is consistent. And it absolutely, you do have to kind of pick and choose. It's not always the best salesperson. It's rarely ever the best salesperson.
Right. And if I may, you're killing it as a salesperson. It doesn't mean you can't be that leader.
Correct.
What has to happen is the leadership that moves you into that role needs to understand that they have to give you the ability to learn. Okay, we need you to learn these leadership skills.
Yep.
And before I move you out of sales, I want you to exhibit that you can learn these skills and somehow see that you can do it, because you probably can. You just got to switch your thinking. I do believe that people are inherently who they are, and there's a lot of people that'll challenge me on that. But I do believe that the core abilities that we are born with are what we're born with, right? And I'm a communicator, and I have a healthy amount of empathy, and so when I've fired a number of
makes
people,
for great leadership. Yeah.
Well, as a manager, I would bring somebody and I'd fire them.
Yeah.
And I would fire them, and in that process, I would say, here's the reason I'm firing you. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because this is the wrong fit.
Yeah.
And I'm doing you a favor. I used to say this all the time. I'm doing you a favor. You're going to eventually want to come back to me and say, thank you for firing me.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I'm not doing my job. Because there are people who just need to move to something else.
100%.
And if you can't repurpose them in the organizations, then you've got to push them along. I will tell you, I left management. I got into sales because I wanted weekends off. Purely self-centered.
We all do,
right? I wanted weekends off, and then I got back into management, and I should have stayed in management the whole time.
Yeah.
And honestly, I should have gotten into sales management, because salespeople need to, a leader in sales, their number one job is to help the salespeople have the tools they can do. They need to do their job well.
100%. They work for them, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So
every leader should think of how they work for other people and not the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is it that you need, Jesse, to help you to do your job well? Gosh, you know what? I really need a better CRM. Well, great. Let me get you a better CRM.
Give them the tools to be dangerous.
Whatever it is. Yeah. I want you to be great. I want you to sell like crazy. In fact, I want you to make more money than me.
Yeah.
And best leaders are the ones that can see that.
I agree. You're reminding me of Simon Sinek right now, and he's just really big on leaders eat last kind of thing, and start with why. And he's shaped a lot of my mentality through my kind of entrepreneurial journey. Who have you learned from through your journey in terms of thought leaders like that when it comes to either sales or business building, entrepreneurship, relationships? Do you have a few people that have really impacted you along your journey?
Yeah, I'll tell you, most of the folks that really impacted me are the people that I directly worked with. These are people that I could touch. In fact, I always like to say, look for heroes in your own backyard.
Yeah.
And there's a guy, he's actually in the hotel business still today. Keith Hensley is his name. He was a leader of mine that the way he led was impressive because he would sit in everybody's office. And at least once a week, you were going to see him sit down in your office and he was going to talk to you. And he would go personal, then he would talk about, personal attitudes, and then he would talk about how you can do your job better.
Yeah.
What do you need from me? What can I do to help you succeed? And one of my favorite examples with him, as a matter of fact, was I sat down. It was a review. I had my direct boss there. He was sitting across the desk, and I started yelling at my boss. If I'd had the water bottle, I would have thought. And he did what he should have. He got everything under control. But when he came back to me, he didn't say you should never. He said, you need to make sure that you express that before then, right? And that was the right thing to do, right? It wasn't you should never have those ideas, you should never have that attitude, you should never lash back. It was use that more constructively. It's brilliant.
That's insane. That's great leadership.
And so I've stayed in touch with him and through the years, and he continues to inspire me. Simon Sinek is a great example of someone that I've done a lot of. I've read a lot, watched a lot of his videos. For me, the number one leader that comes up time and time again is a guy's name. His name is Matthew Shepard. He's the COO of Delta Community Credit Union.
Okay.
Around the corner from here,
here in Georgia. Yeah.
And his leadership style is one that I really embrace and try to rub elbows with him as often as possible. He's somebody that I'll bounce off a lot of questions off of.
Nice.
And then there's another gentleman. His name is Phelps Hope.
Okay.
Phelps Hope is the senior vice president of Kellen Company. He is someone who had his own company. In 2008 happened, and he ended up closing the doors.
Yep.
So I'll bring him in as frequently as possible and say, here's what's going on with my company. What do I need to do better? And he'll check off. He'll have you do this. Are you doing this? I'll never forget the first 2 years. Are you paying yourself yet? I mean, it was always, he said, are you paying yourself yet? It was
pay yourself first.
It was amazing to hear, him so hands-on and so engaged.
Caring about you. That's what it matters. Everything, caring about someone. Whether it's a client, whether it's an employee, whether it's, a business partner, you got to show that empathy.
You absolutely have to. Now, there's a book I'd love to mention.
Yeah.
That if you're interested in how to run a digital marketing, how can you do digital marketing better?
Yes.
It's called Sell Like Crazy. There's lots of books out there named that. Sell Like Crazy. The author's name is Sabri Suby, Sabri.
Yep.
You know you're typing it right when the computer will suggest Sabrina.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Not Sabrina. Sabri, Suby, Suby.
Okay.
This guy puts together a very readable, smart book that describes digital marketing from soup to nuts.
Beautiful.
And if you're interested in digital marketing, or you're a marketer and you need to understand digital marketing, or you know what, you're in college and you're getting an MBA, this ought to be required reading.
Nice.
Because of what he does, he says this is why you should be in digital marketing, and this is how you do it well. And there's no smoke and mirrors with this book.
It's all practical.
It's absolutely. You need to have landing pages. Why do you have to have landing pages? Because of this. How do you format a landing page? It sounds kind of boring, but it's not.
Stuff you need.
No, this guy is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
He is, he's the kind of guy you sound like you're going to sit down and have a beer with.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You'd like to, listen to him.
He's very good. So I recommend that book. Absolutely tremendous. And then today, right here in today's time, everybody should read the book Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. Brian Stevenson is a lawyer who graduated from Harvard. He ended up in Alabama, and he started defending death row inmates that had already been convicted.
Yep.
His book will help bring to light some of the struggles that we're having today.
Yep.
And I think I also think that ought to be required.
I think he or someone very similar to him was on Joe Rogan not too long ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'll have to check it out. If he is, I'll send you the link for that, because there was a guy that was talking about that specific thing and like all the inner workings of that and just kind of the whole dynamic of that thing. It was incredible.
It's just one of, and I'm not something that I was ever passionate about. I do think that this is a story that we should read because we've made a lot of mistakes in our society, and we need to learn from them, right? Yep. Making a mistake's not a bad thing as long as we learn
Make
from
it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a movie made about this, his book, but you need to read the book.
Gotcha.
And the number one reason that I think you should read the book is there's a scene in there, there's an instance in the book where someone really ridicules him in a way that was just demeaning, and that person came back to him later and said, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." And that is the best story in the book.
It's so helpful. People just to admit it. And we're, ego, whether we have a false belief, I mean, people are going to make mistakes.
Well, we come at life through our own experiences.
Yeah.
And our own experiences informs us in so many ways. If I sit down with someone who has an opposite experience than me and expresses to me what formed this, I have a tendency to understand them better than reading Facebook.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So that's why this book kind of expresses that, and he does it, I think, in a really smart way. I should have come with my whole list of books, but there's one more I'd like to mention, and that is StrengthsFinders 2.0.
Okay.
You get the book and you take a test, and it tells you what your 5 biggest strengths are. This is one of those that is really smart because you mentioned what's his face from Chicago. Played basketball. Michael Jordan.
Yes.
So Michael Jordan was a great basketball player. He should never have played baseball.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why? Because basketball players are great at basketball. And not only are they great at it, they stay focused on just that.
Yep.
What StrengthsFinders will do is they'll tell you your 5 best skills and tell you to do those things.
Double down.
Do those things well.
Yeah.
You know what? I shouldn't try to be an accountant. Not my gig.
Yep.
What I need to do is I need to focus on being a communicator first, and then there's 4 other things that I need to focus on also.
Beautiful.
Part of that was leadership and empathy. All of those things build into my skills. That's what I should have been focused on all this time.
Yeah, focus on what you're good at. And I was actually talking about this on the prior podcast today, where Gary Vee talks about this, and I used to be a big Gary Vee follower, and I've since got Gary Vee's like, you're going to get to a point where you hear me saying the same things over and over again. Move on.
I like Gary Vee too.
Move on.
I stopped listening.
Yeah, and he's like, move on, and I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I got it. High five. Thanks. And one of his things he always talks about is double down on your strengths and punt your weaknesses. And in a business setting, you want to be able to focus on the things that are going to move your business forward that you're great at. And I can learn how to go be an editor to edit these videos.
Right.
But how long is it going to take me? And am I going to be able to be as good at it as someone who's already an expert at it?
Right.
So the other way to look at this too is because there is something to be said for learning something new. But for me, that's more on the personal side. So things like picking up singing or photography or things that are more a personal passion, I'll learn how to do those things. But when it comes to business, I have to focus on the tried and true and sub out to people that know what they're doing better than I do. And that's that wise counsel. Bring people on as partners or 1099s or just consultants and have them do what they're great at. Social media, marketing.
Right.
Let them do their thing, I do my thing. So the last piece I want to talk about is your podcast and kind of what you've seen in terms of relationships and things for personal growth for you, and what has the podcast done for you in your world? And what is the podcast?
Yeah. So the podcast mentioned before is How's Your E-Presence? We focus on business and social media, and that's been always the focus as to how can we help businesses figure out social media a little better, and we'll bring in different guests that will speak to that. I happened upon the podcast, right? It wasn't on purpose. It's kind of funny. So I went to a Business Radio X station, and I was a guest.
Yep.
And after the show, the owner of the station came over, and he and I were talking. And next thing you know, I bought a time slot. So I bought a time slot once a month, and it's Business Radio X up in Gwinnett.
Okay.
Mike Salmon is the owner of that station. Great guy. And I was doing this once a month and realized, wow, I can really get a lot more mileage out of this if I was dropping one a week.
Yes.
So we started doing our own, and so I have 3 that are outside of Business Radio X and one's that's there. What I like about it is it has helped me to connect to people that I would not have connected
100%.
with, right?
Yep.
Now in COVID, I've done a lot of Zoom,
Yep.
and now we're streaming them. So we'll stream the videos live right to YouTube or to Facebook. And the number one reason we started doing that is because I really want a LinkedIn Live channel. And there's so many people in social media on LinkedIn already, I can't get a LinkedIn Live. They keep saying, no. So I'm also interested in building a library on YouTube so that I can point them there and say, there's my content.
Yes.
I think my content is 10 times more valuable than a lot of people who are in my space on LinkedIn.
There you go.
Most of them are just responding to comments, right? They'll start their LinkedIn Live and somebody makes a comment, go, oh yeah, Jesse, it's good to see you. I hope you're having a great Saturday.
Yeah. What is that doing?
I think if I'm going to be on LinkedIn or LinkedIn Live, I need to share something that's of value. Yeah. Otherwise, why have that station?
A lot of those people play the algorithm. They know that the amount of likes, comments, and touches you get in the first 60 minutes on a post is going to get you traction. There's something to be said to that, but do value in there. Add value in there.
Right.
Like do something of value on the front end of the LinkedIn Live and then respond like matter of fact, and like this will help you kind of thing.
Exactly.
Versus just liking something.
So the interesting thing is, and you're absolutely right, is that is part of the problem with the algorithm.
Yep.
Right? That somebody can start to provide great content, but they're not getting a lot of likes right away.
Right.
But that's what people really want is that value. Yeah, I'll pop into a lot of LinkedIn Lives in the first 5 minutes. If they're not sharing good content, I'm out.
Yep.
And most of them don't. Now, what's interesting is our good friend Marcello.
Love him.
Cello has
shout out Marcello.
Yeah, he does a great job of bringing in business people and giving them a forum to connect with each other.
He's got a gift for organizing and like community.
Yeah, and so my hat's off to him. He's doing a great job with that. So, but that's what we do in How's Your E-Presence, connecting with people. We bring in great quality guests. We have them share great quality content.
Yep.
And over time, we'll end up with such a library of content that we are getting more and more hits of people who are saying, how do I get 55,000 followers? Or how do I get more followers on LinkedIn? How can I work more on Canva? How can I build organic groups on LinkedIn and Facebook and Slack even? And so there's more of those questions that that we want to answer.
Yep.
So we're constantly trying to figure out how we can answer those questions with our guests.
It's beautiful, brother. Amazing.
You bet, man.
He's the amazing, mighty, and powerful Mark Galvin. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.